Alright y'all, so in this video we're going to start swapping out struts. The front struts on this car, let's see, the passenger side has the sway bar end link broke off, the tabs broke off the strut, and then the end links broke off at the sway bar. So we're going to have to cut the sway bar, what's left, off the end link off the sway bar. The strut's going to have to be replaced. And then the driver's side front doesn't have any issue. Well, I mean, the end link nuts are stripped, so we're gonna have to cut the one off at the sway bar end, and we'll leave it mounted to the strut. Then we can unbolt the strut and put the new ones in, and I'll show you guys kind of how they assemble. It's fairly straightforward. I didn't record it when my buddy Tim did it, but I did lay out the parts for you guys so you can see them, and we'll go from there. We'll start on the passenger side. I'll show you guys what's wrong and then how we're fixing it. So before we start teardown, we got some Takico Blues. They're still in good shape minus the fact that they're dirty. The springs are kind of rusty because the powder coat cracked. I think these are just some cheap eBay springs, maybe some Megan Racing. You guys can see I've got the rears over there, and I apologize for all the background noise. So we have new spring insulators for the uppers, new lower insulators. We have the upper strut mounts, the spring mount perches for the fronts, and then over here we have the rear struts with the strut mounts and the lower spring insulators. Now on the rears, they are side specific. They only go on one side. The fronts can be changed from left to right, so that makes install easier there. I had to mock these up and figure out which was which, because in the time of events, the fronts or the stock suspension is still on the Mazda. We haven't got to actually stripping that yet, although in this video you guys will see they've already been pulled initially. So these are the rears. An easy way to tell is the rear from the front. The brake line bracket is in the back, and the sway bar bracket goes to the rear of the vehicle on the rears. Same as like this one. This is another rear. So we have the brake line bracket in the back, and this is the right rear, and that sway bar end link mount will go to the rear of the vehicle. Now on the fronts, it doesn't matter. The sway bar end link is here, and then the brake line bracket is here. So we're going to get these torn apart. I've got my spring compressor, and when Tim shows up, we'll get torn into these things. Here's the passenger side strut. You guys can see where the sway bars broke off here. I'm gonna have to get a sawzall in and cut this because there's not enough room for an angle grinder or a cutting wheel, and I don't want to deal with nicking the sway bar. Two 17mm bolts, I believe, and then 4 15mm nuts up here. I'll do those 4 bolts plus the brake line that sits in here, and you guys can see right here, where the sway bar end link tab used to be welded. So you would do the end link nut from here, which is 14mm, if I had it, and then one down here if you want to replace the end link. I'm actually going to be stepping up to some Ford Escape end links. Sorry guys, I was out of zoom. Ford Escape end links because they're a little thicker than the factory Mazda ones. So I'll get those 4 nuts off this strut, and it'll be down and out. Fairly simple. I'll give you guys a better play-by-play on the next one. The passenger side, 14mm nuts. And then we got our strut in here. Let's see. Takico Blues. And actually I gotta rotate this like this. Sway bar end link down to here. Brake line. We still have to do something about these calipers, or I mean these knuckles. That'll be coming soon. We're swapping out outer tie rods, control arms, and end links. So I'll give you guys a play-by-play when we get to those. Wish I would have washed these, but I didn't have time. Oh well. So we're over on the driver's side, and the end link is stripped. So I'm going to try to get a Sawzall in here and cut the bottom link and knock it out, because we don't need it anymore. I have some Ford Escape ones that are supposedly bigger, and I actually haven't even checked to see if they are bigger yet, round in diameter than these end links. So let me see if I can get maybe actually get you guys some actual of me doing work instead of just me telling you about it. You can see how I cut it with a Sawzall, and it's pretty much flush. I've got to grind it down some. What a pain in the ass. So yeah, I'm going to get in here. See, close up. Cut that as flush. I'm trying not to hit the sway bar at end. So I'm going to get in here with the grinder, grind that down slightly, and go from there. You can see I ground it smooth and flush until the diameter of the bolt actually matched with the sway bar end, and then I just used a flathead screwdriver up against it like so, and some pressure and a hammer, and tapped it out. Now, I stuck my tie rod up in the strut, but alright. Now we're going to go up top and we're going to yank the 14mm bolts out of the top of this. And then the strut and the end link are just going to come out as one unit. I mean, you guys can see these are destroyed. They don't make these... My light's right in the way. Sorry, guys. You guys can see these are dried out. Anyways, they don't make them greasable, which is kind of stupid. But, it's alright. We put some new ones in. Oh, here. Better idea of how that's stripped. We'll put some new end links in, new struts, and it'll be good as ever. So we have the 4 bolts up here, or nuts, my apologies, they're 14mm. And you guys really don't have to save the hardware, but I have a bolt bin on the floor, so I'll just throw those into my bolt bin. You never know when they're going to come in handy. Really not easy doing this one-handed, y'all. Get my light out of the way. Break all these loose. Get them so I can undo them by finger. And this one's still a little snug, so and my hood latch is in the way because it's in the wrong hole, I know. But I had the hood open as far as it'll go. So when I work on this thing, it's easier it's easy to work on. So alright. So here we got this. Got one bolt left, or nut, and then that'll come off. So here's the new to me, strut assembly. I should have cleaned it, but I didn't. You take the caps off right here, like that one's already exposed. Then we'll swing it under the vehicle and use the 4 nuts to hold it up in place. We'll get our end link put in, and I'll show you guys the end link here in a second, so you can compare the Escape end link to the Protege one. And we'll go from there. Let me get this situated, and I'll be right back with y'all. So here's the Ford Escape Mazda Tribute link. Put it next to the Protege one right here. It's slightly bigger, not much, but a little bit. And these are greasable, so these will last a while. Now let's go up here to the strut assembly. 4 nuts in holding it. We'll tighten those down with a 14 millimeter. And the reason I don't show you guys a lot of me doing stuff and I just tell you about it is because I haven't learned how to time lapse things on these cameras. And I'll be honest about that. I'm still learning how to do this stuff. So, you want these just good and snugged up. I'm going to run these down by hand if it saves you a little bit of time instead of ratcheting like crazy. Get them snugged up. Make sure these are good and tight. Now once you get that last one in, this one still stays a little loose. That was snugged up. We'll go back over these two because these were the first ones we did. Now that's in. Now we're going to go down below. We'll get this end link situated. And once the end link is situated, we will start working on the control arms and then start getting the knuckle back in it. So we got the strut in. We got the swaybar end link mounted up for now. We need to start working on replacing this control arm. So you're going to start by undoing this nut and this pinch bolt here. This is a 14 millimeter nut and bolt. And then we'll take the spindle off right here. And once the spindle is off, there's a 17 millimeter bolt head. Here, let's see if we go around this way. Right there. And there's another one underneath the control arm down in here. And we're just going to get those hands snugged in. You don't want to tighten up the control arms till you can get the vehicle weight sitting on it, or else you can damage the bushings. And we also have to yank this tie rod. It's just going to be a crescent wrench and a wrench that fits here. Break the jam nut loose, spin the tie rod off. Yet again, I get frustrated and I get carried away. You can see we have the new end links in, struts are in, set bolts are in, lower pinch bolt is in, brake calipers are on, rotors are on, axle nuts torqued to 150, tie rods in. I still have to get some brake clips. You can get them at O'Reilly's. They are part number 1457 from Best Parts. So we'll get this sitting in tomorrow, and I gotta get the clips tomorrow. Then driver's side's already done. Let me go to the passenger side and show you where we're at, and I promise I'll record that side a lot better. I got frustrated and pissed off earlier and just said screw it and just started going to town. Okay, so the passenger side, it's already disassembled. I've got the knuckle, the spindle, the control arm off, and I already showed you guys this strut off before. What I'm doing is I'm securing the old ratty tie rod out of the way for now. I got to cut through here to get the end link out. Then we'll put the new control arm in. Get the knuckle mounted up to the new control arm. Get that bolted to our strut. We will secure the tie rod into the knuckle. That way we can get the jam nuts loose and we'll replace the outer tie rods. Then we'll start getting the rotors on and all the other parts together. So let me get in here with a cutoff wheel and go from there. Alright, so we're going to be cutting right here on the end link. Sorry if the lighting's not the best. I don't have a lot of places to safely put the light and to give you guys a decent view. Hold on a second, guys. Let's try to backlight it maybe a little bit. Nope, alright. I'm trying to do everything I can to give you all something to look at other than my feet. That kind of works, right, guys? So we'll cut right in here. I've got my little angle grinder, cutoff wheel, death wheel, whatever y'all want to call it. Sorry guys, got that cut off. We'll get a hammer in here and hit the rest of it down. Let me get y'all closer up so you guys can see. We cut it down. We're gonna have to come in here and grind the rest of this down right here. So we'll grind that flush and then we'll hammer this thing out. And then we'll be good to start reassembly. See, we ground down the end link out of there, touched it up with some black paint so it doesn't rust. We've got our new end link in here, and once this paint dries, we'll bolt it into down there, and then we'll be able to swing our new control arm in and tighten them up with these new Escape ones have 17mm bolts where factory was 14. So once we get the paint dried, we'll get our control arm snugged in, then we'll get our knuckle on, and then we'll worry about this nasty looking tie rod with some new greasable ones. We're getting there. Slowly but surely. To replace the tie rod, you break this jam nut loose. I set the tie rod inside the knuckle, broke this nut loose, and then the tie rod spun off just like this. Once we get the tie rod off, we'll spin this jam nut off, and then we'll put the new jam nut on, and we will put the new tie rod. Alright, you guys. Tie rod's on, end links in. The axle shaft on this one, you can see right here, it just slides over the intermediate shaft, and the snap ring is on the intermediate shaft, and you just kind of pop it over there as hard as you can. Brake caliper tightened up, 32mm nut, 150 foot-pounds. These are nice and tight. This one has the brake caliper properly mounted. So, we have to go to the back of the car now, and we'll start on the rear struts. There should be 3 14mm bolts up top, a 14mm bolt for the sway bar, and the 2 17mm nuts on the strut. So, look how pretty those Tein S springs are. This is an OG setup right here. This takes me back to the high school days when Takico Blues were the hot ticket and Tein S springs were the craze before you could get a set of coilovers for a decent price. So let's get on the back. We're almost on the home stretch. We get the suspension buttoned up. We've got to top off fluids, fix the roof rack, and put the interior in it, and then we're going on a test drive. Alright, so we're in the back hatch strut area. You can see I got 2 nuts here. That'll take this, what looks like my seatbelt anchor, off. take this one and that one off. We'll lift that up. Then there's 3 nuts under here that hold the strut in. 1, 2, and then there's one underneath that nut there. Then we come back out here to the outside of the vehicle, and very similar to the front, you guys have 1, 2, the swaybar end link, and then behind it, I don't know if you guys can see it, right here, there you guys go, you have the brake line clip. So very similar. We're going to start by just yanking or pushing this out with a flathead, set that clip down. I am going to attempt to get this 14 millimeter off here without stripping it, because these ones look like they're OEM almost. Probably wouldn't hurt to buy new ones, but we'll do that when finances allow it. And then take these bolts off the struts, and then we'll go inside and drop the hat. Then we'll bolt the new Takico Blues in. Well, new to me anyways. Alright, so I got the 2 bolts out. You guys can see the suspension's drooping. Now if you go back here, we still have to deal with the brake line clip. So we'll take that off, and then we'll move to the interior, and we'll get the strut out, because up top there's 5 bolts we got to undo. So just as simple as going something like coming in here and pushing on this like that, and don't lose it because they will go flying. So you got your clip off. Now your brake line should pop free of the strut like so, and the strut's disconnected underneath. You guys can see we got free movement. So now I'll go up the top 14 millimeters, 5 nuts, and we'll get those loose, and then we will start working on getting this strut out and the new one in. I have to order some new end links. I've got to measure these and see which ones we have. I might go short the sport ones because I think they're 6.5 inches, where the standard length ones are 7.5. So we'll measure these and I'll let you guys know what they are. So we had one nut here holding the seatbelt anchor on, and we've got another one right here. Hard to see, my phone's dying. I need to get a work light in here. So you take those 2 off, and then you pull this up. This is your seatbelt guide and anchor. Here, let's get it out of the light, guys. Just comes off like that. It only sits on there one way. And then you guys have access to these nuts and bolts here, or these nuts. So we'll get this loose and go from there. So I got the 3 nuts that hold the strut in off, and now we have the old strut out. And I had to go outside the vehicle and reach in to hold it in. So we'll set this Takico Blue in and the Tein S spring. We'll hold it up one-handed, tighten the nuts up, and go from there. Maybe I can get you guys some video of this. We'll try. I know my luck hasn't worked out very well with this. So we're going to set it up in here. So we got the strut in. Well, sitting hanging there anyways. Kind of like how we did the front. And then I know I could get more leverage if I go further down on the handle, but I jacked my hand up last night and is not really feeling the wrench turning today. So you see how we get this one going in. Get it sitting in there almost all the way down. I'm going to run these down by hand. So we're not taking all the time with the ratchet. Come in here. Now you guys might notice these bolts aren't nearly as long as the originals. And I don't know why that is, but the good news is the metal hat that goes on up here isn't an anchor point. It is just a guide for the seatbelt. So it really doesn't anchor the seatbelt down. So we'll be okay if the bolts aren't as long. So now we got these 3 bolts down tight. We will put that hat on it, that guide on there, and then with the guide on there, we will snug it down and call it good. Now, I had to change sockets. The nuts up here were 15 millimeters on the stock struts. These aftermarket ones are 14s. So it'll be 14 to put these back on. And then when I put the anchor or the guide nuts, it'll be a 15 millimeter to hold those down. So let me get these snugged up. We'll get underneath the car, remount the strut, and then start on the passenger side. So we have the seatbelt guide bolted down. You can tell these strut bolts aren't as long as the originals, but they're tight. They're not going anywhere. This doesn't have, well, maybe in a wreck it has some structural, but that's done. Then we're going to go out here. I'll show you guys what I did. Just like the fronts, I'm not going to have to show you guys the passenger side. Doesn't make sense to just drag this on. So 2 bolts in, 1, 2, and then back here we have this brake line clip in, and I had to order a new swaybar end link. I ordered a new pair because I'm gonna have to cut the other side off too. So here we go. Look, if these were clean, look how good these would look. Takico Blues Tein S springs. This brings me back to the high school days. Big shout out to Tim Moore coming up here helping me assemble these struts. We didn't get to recording it. I got busy. I'll include that part of the video into this. All the guys, I mean everybody who's helped me out with this. Like I keep saying, Jason Jackson out of Washington, I believe. Brian Johnson. Scott, the guys at Purely Protege. The Protege 5 guys. The Mazda Protege Facebook guys. All you guys, I want to thank you. We're going to shut down this suspension video. Thanks for watching, y'all. God bless.